Welcome to the Gravitas Podcast series, where we explore the trends shaping industries today and tomorrow. I'm your host, Abigail Cleanis, and today we're diving into franchise development and multi-unit expansion in the QSR space. We're excited to be joined by someone who has been at the forefront of scaling one of the most recognizable fast casual brands in North America. Joining us today is Kevin Moran, Chief Development Officer at Blaze Pizza. Kevin brings more than 20 years of experience in franchise development, strategy, sales, and finance. At Blaze, he leads the development and franchise compliance teams, driving the brand's domestic and international expansion and building strategic partnerships to support long-term growth. Before joining Blaze Pizza, Kevin served as Vice President of Strategic Development at Focus Brands International, where he helped drive global market expansion for a portfolio of more than 6,600 restaurants across 60 different countries. Kevin, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, Abigail, thank you for that introduction.
Of course. Really looking forward to having you join us. So, Kevin, you've had a really interesting career path leading up to Blaze. Before joining the brand, you spent several years working on strategy and development across major restaurant platforms. Can you walk us through your career journey and how you eventually found your way into restaurant development?
Yeah, sure. So when I started, I was in finance and I had insatiable curiosity and I was continually trying to find the reasons behind the numbers, right? And it wasn't just typical finance P&Ls and stuff like that. It was forecasting and things of that nature. So you kind of wanted to know what was driving the business and why your numbers were looking a certain way. So I started to bridge the gap between operations and finance, and I started to become really kind of a residential subject matter expert across the companies I was working at because I wanted to know what was driving it. So I spent a lot of time cross-functionally getting involved with it could have been compliance when I worked at the regulatory commission. It could have been operations when I was working for the manufacturing company. I mean, it could have any relationship that was being developed. And so I really started to connect those dots. And then it really turned into, okay, well, since you know all of this, Kevin, and you're gaining this understanding, why don't you help us start to build your strategies and what you think we could be doing, should be doing? What do you see coming down the forefront? And then in doing that, I got really involved in a lot of, I wouldn't say large, but small database management, right? And so I learned how to make tables, do queries, write reports, all that through Access. And then I know I'm dating myself when I say Access, but that's how it started. And then, so to have that ability, I started to create, dashboards, and I started to create, okay, how do we want to see things on a certain basis? So then everybody was starting to use it and see it. And then I was teaching people to fish. So we didn't have one person that was the knowledge base of everything. Everybody went to, so-and-so to get this report. Everybody goes to that same person to get this, and this. And now this was all available to the organization. And so now people could move faster and be more nimble. And then in doing that, that really brought me to kind of the sales side of things, right? So the strategy always had something to do with, how do we grow, right? And those are always kind of the initiatives that we were trying to do. Sometimes it was cost cutting and understanding, where our expenses lie and stuff like that. But most of it was about growing. And so when you get into the environment, like my previous role prior to being here, and you can talk effectively with the people that are wanting to invest with you. You understand the P&Ls, you understand the metrics, you understand why something is working a certain way, you understand why a business is behaving a certain way, whether it's real estate or construction or whatever it may be. And having that intel and that knowledge really made me, an A player inside of, I'll say, a development organization. Because I'm not trying to brag, but I became a one-stop shop. I didn't have to talk to legal. I understood the contracts. I've worked with the contracts. I helped write some of the compliance things that we have in place. I understand the finance side. I understand the marketing side. All those different moving pieces. So when I'm talking to an investor, they're feeling more comfortable with, possibly moving forward. But I also like to think that there was a piece of education, right? And so, I like to talk to people that can help me learn things, but I also like to educate people. And even today, if there's someone that's looking at a brand and doesn't understand something or wants to understand something, I'd be more than happy to talk to them about it. I'd like to help them, put brands side by side and do a comparison. And these are the things I would be looking at if I was looking to purchase a brand and be a franchisee for a particular franchisor and things of that nature. So it was really just kind of a self-made progression, but it was very intuitive in the way how it just kind of continued to evolve. And it all started back to what I said earlier about insatiable curiosity. Anytime, and one of my first bosses was kind of this way, but anytime I brought her something, she would always say, why, why? So she kept pushing me back to go back to figure out what's behind that. And so I didn't want to show up in her office with my next report, and I couldn't tell her why a number was a certain way, or why we forecasted to be up 300 units another way, or all those types of things. So I had to know. So I had to go talk to these people. I had to get out of my comfort zone. And now that is my comfort zone. And now I have the ability to, pick things up very quickly and get to solutions a lot faster.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely gives you a different perspective when you're in the weeds with strategy, sales, finance, and then bringing that into development. And I think that perfectly segues us into my next question for you. Are there any particular lessons or learnings from your earlier roles that you believe shaped how you approach development today?
For sure. So when I was at Focus Brands, and we had about 1,200 units internationally. And when I left, we were at about 2,200 units in a short period of time. I say 7 years. Some people might say that's a long period of time, but to develop 1,000 units in 7 years and to leave with the pipeline that I left of to be built, it was a very, very challenging experience, but very gratifying. And the biggest thing I learned is, as much as your brand is scalable, and that's what everybody's trying to achieve, right? It is only as scalable as far as the audience is willing to take or receive it. So Blaze in Singapore is different than Blaze Singapore. Blaze in India is different than Blaze India. And I quickly learned that we had to learn how to make our brands, at the time Focus Brands, but now even Blaze, work inside of the confinements of a country. And sometimes it's even a major city within a country. Not all the cities in India respond to the same types of things, and not all the cities in China and all the cities, across the globe. And so I learned that flexibility, that ability to not jam a square peg in a round hole. And how does it work? And how do we represent ourselves? How do we show up on the streets of Madrid? How do we show up on the streets of San Salvador? How do we show up on the streets of, Singapore, et cetera, et cetera? And so working with those franchisees, they found, I don't want to say peace with me, but they found that, because they also wanted it to work. A lot of brands that they were trying to grow was, no, this is how we do it. This is what the store is going to look like. It has to fit like this. All the walls are going to be painted this color, and all this is going to be that. And we were like, no. There's certain guardrails we're not going to go beyond, but anything in between, we were more than willing to kind of, I don't want to say experiment, because I think that means that we didn't do our homework, but we were willing to try. And when you get to pizza, the menu itself provides itself for the ability to try. There are so many flavors in different countries that can be put on a pizza that the people in the US would be like, there's no way in the world I'm eating that. And there's people in other countries be like, I can't wait to have that on my pizza. I don't want to put those guardrails up. Yes, I still want to have our signature pizzas and those types of things. But at the end of the day, I want to be able to have that creativity that only a country and its people can provide.
Yeah. And I think Blaze has a really interesting growth strategy. And one thing that really stands out for me is how Blaze grows through their multi-unit operators. So I'm wondering, as you look at expanding the Blaze brand, how do you think about development strategy, where Blaze grows, and the types of partners that you grow with?
Yeah, that's a great question, Abigail. And so we've been able to, as of recently, sign up, I'll call it an AI instrument. And what this AI instrument allows us to do just from the get-go is, of course, I want to have a multi-unit operator that's been in the food and beverage business and understands restaurants, et cetera. I would love to have that. Now, Is 6 multi-units too many? Is 2 not enough? Is 1 not enough? Like you got it, because then where am I in the pecking order of your multi-units that you own across other brands? So you got to have that to think about. But at the end of the day, I also want to know that if Abigail is not the greatest food and beverage individual, but Abigail knows real estate better than anybody in the town or the city that she is in, and she wants to maybe buy my brand to be a part of this. Well, wait a second. I got to evaluate Abigail a little bit different. I can teach anybody how to make a pizza. We can do that. The less I have to teach you about running a business and those types of things in a food and beverage environment is great, but you may bring a different skill set. So now you have a different profile, and this AI engine that we've created helps us determine who we think is, viable under certain circumstances. So guess what? Now I've taken knowledge from an AI generated system that says this is how I should be talking to, promoting to, sharing with Abigail, who is a real estate person, as opposed to Ankit, who might be a great F&B guy, but doesn't have the real estate side. Okay, well, let me show him how we help on that side of the business. So there's a lot of different things in that type of growth strategy. But then there's also, just leveraging your brand where you have brand presence and it's known, right? So California, we've got 100 plus units just in California alone. And with that, you want to leverage as much as you can. So you want to start to creep out into Vegas, you want to start to Nevada and Colorado and Arizona and et cetera, because you can still leverage that, right? But then how do I move from there over to the other coast? And so you've got to find partners that are willing to hit a market in a certain speed with a certain presence. And so one of the things that it's a criteria, but it's not a must, is we try to sell 3 units, nothing less than 3 units, because we want you to own your area development area, your ADA is what we call it, right? We want you to own that. And if you could go there and say, I'm going to open up 3 restaurants in a year and a half or 2 years, that's awesome. You're going to build brand presence. And then you're going to get the synergies of, I'll call it above store management. It doesn't take a full-time manager to manage one store all the time. They can do 2 or 3. I think in some instances in our system, we have some area managers that are managing close to 6 or 7 units, and that's about the max, just because of just distance more than necessarily the management of a unit. So then you start to get those types of synergies. So now I want to build on, okay, well, so Abigail's opened up stores in Charlotte. Okay, how do I get things into Nashville? Because now Charlotte is starting to build that presence. How do I start to drip feed just further and further out? Yeah, you'll take the bluebirds that fly by and want to be in some of the more rural areas, and that's fine too. You got, and if you can make the numbers work and the supply chain can happen, and it's not, breaking the bank and making your COGS be 40-50% higher than they should be, then we're all for that. Typically in the rural areas, you're going to get better labor costs, you're going to get better real estate costs, but you're going to pay a little bit more to get the product there. So it's a constant balance, right? And it's kind of like, okay, this is really, really good. This is not so good. Oh, these both are kind of on par. So it's kind of like when you buy a house, right? You look at it and you say, okay, what's the school system like? It's the best school system in the world. Okay, but now I have to pay more for my home, so I'm not going to get the yard that I wanted. But can I get a garage? Or, like every house has its thing that's just a little bit different, and you got to work your way around it and say what's important to you and what's not. And that's the same thing you got to do when you're choosing a franchisee, a franchise business to be a franchisee for.
Yeah, for sure. And that leads me to my next question. So, when we're speaking of franchise partners specifically, and you're evaluating them coming into your system, what qualities would you say separate a good operator from a great long-term partner for the brand?
So the first thing is we try to find out, what do they think their amount of time they're going to be spending on this brand is going to be? Do they think they're going to, and I'm going to revert back to some of my sports, do they think they're going to roll up at the away stadium? They're going to roll out their helmets on the red carpet and they're just going to win because they're the greatest people of all time and they're just going to win. If they think that's the position, Blaze is not a passive brand. You have to be involved. So I want to make sure that they understand the amount of involvement that needs to happen. But like anything else, if you can get the right people involved at the right times as the franchisee, as the owner of the business, if you get the right GMs in place and the right assistant GMs, your job is now becoming less and less involved because now they're running your day to day. And now you're looking for your fifth site, your sixth site, your seventh site, because now that's what you've now honed in. And so that's one of the first things I look at in a multi-unit operator. The second thing I look at with a multi-unit operator is how do they run their current operations? I want to go look at their existing businesses. I want to see how well they're doing, how well they're staying relevant in their area development. Scenarios, all those types of things that I can get a chance to see how they're running their other brands. And so that gives me an insight into how passive aggressive are they in their brands. Are they really involved? Are they not? Are they killing themselves because they are too far involved and they're not giving the reins over to a better GM or a better person that can help them get out from underneath it? And that's kind of, you get into that little tough spot with franchising, is because people want to be their own bosses. And I get that, and I don't want them to not be, but I want to make sure that the processes and those types of things are in place so they can be their best boss going forward. And then you get into kind of the third view of, a multi-unit operator, and I'll start to evaluate their staff, and I'll start to see, and I'll try to see if I can figure out, do they have a lot of turnover? Is their staff, are they hiring the types of people that I would want hired for my brand, right? And so those would be the three quickest ones. And obviously, there has to be passion for it too. This isn't just another money generating vehicle. You got to have passion for the brand. And if you're not excited about having, Blaze Pizza under your roof, you're not excited about making the best pizzas in your town, and you're not excited about getting the community involved, then I feel like I'm just off the shelf, something that you can go buy at Walmart, so to speak, and try to make a business out of it. And we definitely don't want that either.
Yeah, for sure. And I think once the right operators are in place, the next piece is giving them the tools to actually scale successfully, which is something I believe Blaze does exceptionally well. One thing I found particularly interesting about Blaze is the way that it approaches innovation. You've created Ignite, Blaze's live test innovation center. Can you tell us a little bit about the thinking behind Ignite and how it fits into Blaze's innovation strategy?
Yeah, it's 100% about the scalableness, if that's even a word. I think it might be. If it's not, it's a new Kevin word. We'll use it. But the whole premise behind it was, we looked at the business when I first got here, and we looked at all of, just what happens on a daily basis inside a store. We went to several different stores. Some of them are inline, some of them are end caps, some of them are in a mall, some of them are in an airport, whatever it may be. And we honestly evaluated everything that went on, and we said, okay, where are all the pain points? And how do we make this brand better? Because when this brand came out, it was a novelty in the sense that it was a pizza in 181 seconds, which no one was doing at the time. Some people have copied or have created their own versions of it, which is fine. It was down the line ordering, which was very new 12 years ago, when you would go to Chipotle and go down the line. You go to these, even the sandwich makers, you go down the line and then you get your product, right? And so that was kind of the newness of it, but that's kind of the oldness of it now, right? And so we evaluated, the units hard. Like, we were really harsh on ourselves, and we said, okay, what do we have to change to make it a better experience for the consumer, right? And so we looked at how long does it take to order? How many times does a customer get interrupted? And we all hate this. How many times do you get interrupted? You're at the counter to order your food, and somebody comes behind the person that is taking your order and puts 4 chits on their desk or on their make station, and they're like, give me 1 second, and they go make 3 sandwiches or 3 burritos or whatever, because that's an online order. And you're going, well, I'm actually here. Like, you're, and so we saw this happening even at Blaze, and we we're like, hold on a second. And so we evaluated, should we have a second make line that is just for online digital orders? Because it's making up a large portion of our business and other people's businesses. We even went to the extent of, should it have its own oven, right? We look at our oven today and we say, okay, it's a great oven. It's our signature. It's our heartbeat. It's also our Achilles heel, because if you have that oven, it does a great job and you can do different things in it. But the person that makes your pizza in that oven is a very highly skilled labor position. And it's really hard to stand in front of a 900-degree oven for 4, 5, 6 hours a day. That's asking someone a lot, right? So if I could take that off of them, some of the work off of them, because now I'm putting them on a different make line and it's going through a different oven, you certainly don't care about the, and I hate to say it this way, but the theater of the oven, because you ordered online and someone's going to bring it to you. So you're not even watching your pizza get made. So that certainly doesn't matter to you, right? And I don't want to lose that experience either, right? And so we're balancing that. And our oven manufacturers even come out with a new oven. They call it the One Rev, where it takes the skill set out of and the inconsistency of who your pizza, we call them a pizza smith, who your pizza smith is, out of the equation. You put the pizza on the stone top. Infrared reads it. It knows how heavy it is, how dense it is, and it puts it around and it goes around one time. And when it comes around that one time, it's ready. So Kevin today, knowing nothing about pizza, anybody listening to this podcast today could go in there, take the pizza off the sheet and put it in, and they would make a perfect pizza. So that's the innovation that we're bringing to the table. We got all these other things that we saw people doing at Blaze, and we were like, that looks like an uncomfortable situation. Your pizza takes 180 seconds. So people stand around at the end of the line. They went down the line and they ordered, and they're like, okay, so now what do I do? We call that the pizza mosh pit. Well, wait a second. Why don't we just put up a board that says, Abigail, order received, order fired up, order ready, right? So now you don't have anxiety. You know that your pizza's there. There could be 15 pizzas going on, but yours is there and it's being worked. So you grab your drink, you go sit down, and now that anxiety goes away. And so there's a lot of innovation. There's actually nothing in that Ignite store that isn't there because of innovation we're trying to seek. And this is a customer-facing, P&L responsible store, but it's got operational innovation, it's got menu innovation, it's got IT innovation, it's got labor model innovations, it's got design and construction innovation, and it's all happening. And what we're hoping, and it's not hope, what we're doing is we're looking at all these things, and if something fails, that is not a failure. That is why we just learned why that won't work. So when a franchisee comes to me and says, hey, I want to do XYZ, you're like, we thought about that and we did it for 6 months, or we did it for 3 months and we tried it, and this is why you don't. And they're going to go, I never thought that would have happened. That's why we're doing these types of things. So even the ones that don't work for us in the sense that we now know it's off the table. And so we're creating these playbooks. So now when you look at your existing base, you got 5 stores and you really have a tough time with your lunch crowd. You see the lines backing up. You see people leaving because they don't want to stand in that line. They're like, oh, man. Well, we have a solution for you. Guess what? We have now a second make line, and we now have kiosks in the store. So let people come in, order it. It goes to that digital make line. It's not going down the line. What else would you like? What else would you like? What else would you like? Someone knows they can get it. They can make that pizza in 40 seconds, get it in the oven, get it through, and in 5, 7, 10 minutes tops, you've got your pizza. And so now your experience of going to lunch at Blaze has changed because you've now seen this and we have the playbook for you. So there's a ton of that going on in this location. And now we've got to take those learnings and get them into the formats that we can start to share, because it's only been opened since I think October of last year. And so we're getting our first wave of I'll call tried and true innovations that we can start to share with the franchisees. So it's been awesome, exciting, stressful, but I also think that the consumer at this particular location has been wowed by what they're seeing and what they're doing, because it used to just be a traditional Blaze, and now it's all new design, new everything. So they kind of drank from the fire hose, and we don't expect everybody in our system to go do what we did and do a complete refurb and all these other things, but there's elements there that can change their business for them.
Yeah, for sure. Ignite's such an interesting concept, and I would say it's probably one of a kind within the QSR industry. It's not something that you see a lot of brands doing, so it's amazing that Blaze has taken the initiative to do this for their franchisees and the brand in general. So you mentioned that you test a number of different types of innovation, from menu innovation to digital innovation. How do you determine when something is ready to scale across the entire system?
Yeah, so that's the hard part, Abigail, and that's really holding to the process, right? And so we've got stage gate processes that says it has to go to this, it's got to go to ops testing, it's got to qualify. Let's just say it's a menu item. It's got to get to 3.5% of menu mix in a certain period of time, and it can't cannibalize something, or its margin has to be these different types of things. And so you've got to stick to your guns about what is what defines success. So for something to come in, you already have to have a parameter on what you think defined success is and how does it measure up to it. So when we brought the kiosks in, we said, okay, well, how many orders do we want to have go through the kiosks? And we said, well, let's try to get 10 orders a day through it, and let's see what we can do with that. And so we started to get, almost 10%, not 10 orders a day. And we were like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. So we got real excited, and we wanted to tell everybody go get kiosks. We were like, hang on a second. Let's keep going through here. What do we have? Because the kiosk is only as good as if you have the second make line in some instances. So then we started to evaluate that second make line and the cost associated with that. And do I actually have to have an extra employee to service that? Now I'm not in a linear model anymore down the line. Now I'm more in a modular kind of square model, because the backside goes into the backside of a different oven. And, so you got all these different pieces. You gotta stay tied and true to the process and let the process kick it out. And then when that's done, then it's ready to say, okay, franchisees, if you're having this problem, this is a solution for you. And it's going to cost you, and I'm making it up, this is going to cost you $14,000 for 2 kiosks and a back make line. And if you can push 20% more or 10% more through this line, you should have a payback in 6 months. I'm making it up, but that's the methodology behind it. Not to say that you have to have that problem to have that device, but I want to speak to you on your level of what's going on in your stores. And by the way, we know our stores pretty well. We're not just throwing it out there and, hey, who read it? Like, hey, Abigail, we know you're having a lunchtime problem. We see you doing great lunchtime, but we think it could be even more if you had X, Y, and Z. And so it's really staying true to, and we call it the stage gate process. And there's different things where things sit. And then if something sits in it for a little while, we start to look at it and say, why is this still here? Have we not proven it? And if it, and like I said, even if it fails, it may be a fail, we'll never do that. Or maybe it's failed, let's just put it on another burner. So then when the time comes, we may revisit it again. So then we've got a pool of back ideas too, right? And then ultimately it's how many ideas can you do at a time, right? And do I have 100 ideas in the pipeline and I'm trying to push 100 ideas out at once? Or should I be really concentrating on 6 or 7 bigger ones, and let's get those to the finish line so then we can start to step change, the business for the franchisees. And by the way, we evaluated the entire system for almost a year to know, like, it think of like humans, right? There's always a nuance between humans, but there's probably 4 main health things that are wrong with humans, right? Same thing with businesses. You're going to have your 4 main categories. Let's see if we can't find solutions for those main issues. Let's get those resolved. And then if we ever get to the point where we're resolving a very minute issue that could be a big driver, sure, that would be great. But, we're still formulating, at a bigger scale.
Yeah. And Blaze doesn't stop at innovation. Another really interesting initiative that you guys have been doing is the Remote Operations Center, or the ROC, which helps support franchise operators. Can you explain how that system works and how it helps operators run more efficient restaurants?
So the Remote Operations Center, has several purposes. And one of the main purposes it has is what we call delivering VCRs, virtual coaching reviews. They're not audits, we are coaching. And basically, this is something that I built with a team over at Focus Brands internationally. And it was COVID driven because we couldn't get out to see our restaurants to help them. So we're like, how can we do this? And we built proprietary software with RisePoint and those types of things. And basically what it does is it allows the general manager or the store manager at their time to set up a calendar invite where a coach, and they're actually in Costa Rica, will call them and they're going to walk them through a review. Now, this review takes about 60 minutes. And it's all digitized where I can talk to you immediately and show you this is what this pizza should be looking like when it comes out. Yours pizzas are looking a little undercooked, and share a picture right then and there. This should be happening. This should be and then you get a report that tells you all these different things. And what this does is now it builds a cadence. Now, a lot of companies spend a lot of money and a lot of time sending what they call FBCs, field business consultants and like that, and get on planes and then go do, I'll call it just compliance standards, right? It's just not needed. And so we do this, but now we have a catalog, and now we can look at our system and say, wow, 85% of our system is failing at keeping this up to standard, or this one particular pizza is not cooking properly, or the general manager is not doing its scheduling right, or whatever it may be, and we have it all condensed into one. And what's nice is now I have a relationship with that coach, and now when I get my next coaching session the next quarter, I'm talking to the same gal or guy, and they're like, hey, by the way, were you able to remediate these 3 things in that time frame? Yeah. Okay, well, let's go look at those first. And now they're excited to show you what they've done. And sometimes the remediation isn't able to wait a quarter. It's like, hey, wait a second, no, we're going to come back next week. We want to make sure that that's been fixed or remediated. And so having this visibility, having this tool has been a huge game changer for us. In one sense, it's allowing us to help the franchisees, but it's also giving the franchisees something to lean back on. They have a coach, and listen, they can call the coach anytime they want. And it's in different languages. So if you are speaking more Spanish in a certain part of California, or you are in San Salvador, or, when we start to grow more into the Middle East, we'll start getting Arabic speakers. We're fortunate that our franchisees in Bahrain has English-speaking managers, so it works out fine, which is great. But as we grow, we'll grow just like we did in a previous life. And so having this tool is huge. But now think about having this tool, and now we want to remodel, and we want to start to, change a facelift for the brand that, frankly, hasn't had a reimage in a long time. Well, guess what? We have all of the videos we can go back and look at, and we can say, who are the ones that need it the most? And it's not a we're coming after you. No, we saw a video of your store. We're here to help. Oh my God, you guys are going to help me get a sign up. You guys are going to help me repair seats. And yeah. And here's what we want to do. Oh, and by the way, the 17 that we did last month is showing a 6% increase in their sales volume. And we want to see what kind of uptake you're going to get with this type of momentum. So now we're being proactive, and we're working with the franchisees. And for a general manager or a store manager to get a report that says, this is everything we covered, this is where you scored unbelievable, great job, keep doing it, and then this is where we saw areas where you could get opportunities and score better and score higher. We had people that scored 100 across the board, and they had T-shirts made that says, we scored 100% on our VCRs, 100%. They're super excited about that, and we are too. And so we have an opportunity to marry, I'll call the best in class in the system with the folks that aren't best in class, and let's get them up. And so it's been fantastic, and I absolutely love it. And I can't imagine having a business that doesn't have this, to be honest with you. And now we're starting to leverage it on other things. So this call center, and it's virtual coaching center, but it's a call center, but it's way more dynamic than that. Also handles a lot of our customer resolution. So when complaints go out onto Yelp, go out to Google, go on to whatever repositories that you can give reviews on, they actually go to this call center and they're remediating them. And they even have the ability to send to Abigail a free pizza on their behalf, if that's what she's so upset. We don't want you to be upset. We heard you loud and clear. And I think our response time is under 15 minutes now. And so we're seeing our scores go up on Yelp, on Google, on those types of things because of this center that's now correlating this. We're now leveraging phone. There's a lot of people that don't want old school, that don't want to go to a website. They just want to pick up the phone and call. Well, who's answering the phone in your store? Who's answering the phone in your store? We don't know. all those phone calls go to this. They take payment and then it goes to you. Just like an online order would go to you, you're going to get an online order from them and you're going to get your phone order and you're going to tell you it's going to be a pickup or it's going to be for, a delivery. And it's seamless to the franchisee. And so we've got a lot of cutting edge systems. And by the way, all of this data is being captured. And you heard me talk about AI. Well, think about how all the analytics that AI can now start to give us on our own system. We can run and say, go through all of our VCRs and tell us what was the 10 most common themes. What were the 10 best? What were the 10 worst? And all of a sudden now we've got new strategies, new action plans where we can then make the next coaching review more centric on those things and not so much on these other things that everybody seems to always get right. It's like, checking the uniform. Everybody's tie is on and it's tight. Well, then let's stop asking the question. Let's get on to the other things where it may not be the case. And it's fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. And Blaze is doing overall, I think you guys are such a proactive brand, from Ignite to the Rock and so many other innovations that you guys have done. You're always looking to support your franchise operators and also just develop your brand as a whole. So, from your perspective, looking ahead, we see the restaurant industry is evolving quickly, from rising development costs to new digital technologies to changing consumer expectations. And from your perspective, what trends will shape the future of restaurant development over the next few years?
Great question. Hard question, too. I think the trends of being able to order online and that simplicity are still going to be there. And I think restaurants are going to continually try to challenge themselves to find a way to not have the food degradation that happens in just an online order. And people know that that's just, and people are okay with that, but that's just the nature of the beast. When you order French fries, they come a certain way if you get them, delivered to you. Some folks are getting better packaging that can help with that. Some folks are finding different ways to ship it, so to speak, right? Whether it's in those hot bags like you get your pizzas in and stuff like that, all those different things. That's not going to change, and that's probably only going to get more prevalent. But I think the biggest thing is, we call it choose your way to Blaze. And when I first got here, there wasn't a unit that was smaller than 2,000 square feet. Now we have units that are 1,800 square feet, 1,400 square feet. We're in some places where they're 900 square feet. And if you get a 900 square foot Blaze and you've got, back a house that takes up 700 square feet, what is in the front? The front is, this is a delivery carry out type thing. And then if you have these types of choices in front of you, then you can take different types of models to then go back to what we talked about earlier about getting your presence known in a certain ADA. And you could do the hub and spoke, where you could say, I'm going to build a flagship and it's going to be on the corner of Main and Main, but then I can have a small 900, a small 900, and a small 900 flanking it more out towards where my third-party deliveries are going anyway. And now I can get them a pizza quicker, pizza faster. And guess what? Because they got it faster, my food degradation has also stopped. My construction costs are less because now I'm building something that's 900 square feet as opposed to 2,000 square feet. It's not necessarily customer centric where come sit down and have a meal. We'll have seats in there. It won't be a ton, but that's not the experience you're looking for. So, but now you saw that, you got that, and then you see one, you're like, hey, I'll go in there, I'll do that. And so we want to meet the customer the way they want to be met. And the more flexibility we can bring to that really insulates us from another COVID or another real estate issue or whatever it may be. It really starts to insulate us. The problem today is everybody before COVID was building where they could get their day parts. They could get the office day part, lunch, right? Maybe even an early breakfast in some brands. Then you got your mid-afternoon stuff. So you got the players and the parents and sports getting something in between, or musical, groups, this and that. And then you had dinner. And so these restaurants started to be made around where that was the best. COVID comes, everybody goes home. Guess what? You just lost one of your day parts because now no one's in that building that's now vacant. That was 30% of your business because that was your lunchtime crowd. Oh boy. So then what does everybody do? Everybody knee jerks reacts and starts to go build out into these areas where everybody lives. And now guess what? People are going back to work. It's not work from home like it was 3, 4 years ago. The buildings are now 40%, 50%, 60% becoming less vacant, right? And so now they're filling up. So now they're coming back to these centers. Well, okay, well, what's the medium in between that? And how do I balance that where I don't really care what happens down the road? I am covered. The people that had third-party delivery and had drive-through prior to COVID did great. And they were prepared for that because they were just prepared for something that needed that. Well, let's get prepared for something that may challenge. Construction costs are not going down. We know this, right? And so how do I get my unit into something smaller? And the builds are getting more expensive. And they're even getting more expensive when you're flipping an existing restaurant. And it's like, holy cow, I'm just putting some makeup on this thing and it's costing me this. And there's gonna come a time, and I don't know when this is, and landlords play a really hard game with franchisees, but the rent that they're trying to get and the amount of competition that is out there is really, really hard for brands to say, I can sign up for this lease payment every month because I know my brand does $1.5 million, it does $1.8 million, it does $1.2 million, whatever the number is, that's what I can kind of count on. You want my brand to do $3 million, and that's the rent that you're asking me for. Okay, that's then I guess I'm out. And that's the loss they're willing to take. And don't get me wrong, there's brands that do 3, 4, 5, 6 million. I get it. And that's fine. And go in. But when you run the course of your brand and it starts to become less relevant, because the ones that are doing those types of volumes are the new brands, right? They're the newest hot thing. Everybody wants it. Oh, this is great. Well, guess what? That's what Blaze was. And Blaze was willing to pay that kind of price for those AUVs. Well, now Blaze isn't getting those AUVs, and now, they can't afford those rents. So guess what's going to happen? They're gonna go exactly through the exact same growing pains Blaze has gone through. And by the way, there's brands that are 50, 60, 70 years old that are redoing it, reinventing themselves for the 5th time, right? And you think of the Chili's, the Applebee's, the whatever, that are doing a phenomenal job, right? And they've got their real estates and they've got their embedded costs and those types of things. And so it's just part of the beast. And I think everybody's figuring out, what are the nuances that we can control as best we can. And I also think there's a lot of opportunity, in front of franchisees with partnering with the right people. Like if you're going to build 5 restaurants, find the guy and gal that's going to build your 5. And then get the value out of that, right? And then if you get in with a great landlord group in a certain part of town and they've got other buildings, get in with them early and say, by the way, I'm opening 5. So I'm not just trying to get 1 unit from you. If I can sign up 5 right now, I will. Great. So start to leverage those types of relationships if you can and get in front of them and be prepared.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that segues us, you touched on it a little bit, but for operators who are looking to scale into multi-unit ownership today, aside from the point that you made on getting ahead of the curve, what advice would you give them as they evaluate brands and growth opportunities?
Yeah. So obviously, a stat that I love about a pizza concept is 13% of the world is having a pizza. I think it's like every second, a slice of pizza or a bite of pizza every second. 13% of the world. So think about that category alone. Pizza is big. So if you're getting into multi-brands, you kind of look at what brands is it a snack brand? Is it a beverage brand? Is it an all-encompassing brand? Is it a sit down? Is it a quick serve? Those types of things you gotta understand like what those pieces are. I think for me, the next would be, what is my ability to get good staff? And to get good staff immediately, you're either lucky or not, right? But can you make good staff, right? And we all know that customer service has been on the forefront of every industry. Forget just food and beverage. Every industry, whether you're buying a car, going to Home Depot, whatever you're doing, everybody talks about how customer service is just dropped, right? And there's even this beautiful book that's out there all about customer service and how we get that back. That right there can change and differentiate you from the field that's out there right now that's operating. If you have people that are engaged, they're passionate about your brand, actually look at the customer, smile, make them feel special about why they're there, and say, oh my God, I've never seen someone put that on a pizza before. This is going to be the best pizza that I make today. I can't wait to see that come out of the oven. Like, oh my guy's like going, wow, that's thank you, right? That kind of stuff. And it's just small stuff. And there's some brands, and I'm not going to name them, that have unbelievable, my pleasure type businesses, right? And so we know who they are, and that's what's differentiating them. And they're not just satisfied with that. So that would be the second thing that I'd find. I wanted to make sure that that's what I was getting in the area in which I was trying to, or I could get to that through, what would be my staffing crowd, my staffing audience and ability to get. And I'd want to know that as much as I could. And then the last piece is the brand. I'd be looking at the brand and just saying, how much are they trying to stay ahead of the curves? How are they going to help me grow? How are they going to help me build my first couple of units? How are they going to teach me? How are they going to, be a part of our partnership? And, is it, hey, thanks for the deal, see you later, good luck to you? Or is it, hey, so glad you signed, here's the protocols that we run through, let's get the first one up and running, follow these, and you can't fail. This is the playbook, this works. And then all of a sudden they're like, wow, I really like working with these guys because they allow me to be what every franchisee ultimately wants to be, their own boss. They're entrepreneurial, they're big thinkers. Great. We don't want to stop that, right? And so finding the brands that do that can be hard. And I'm not pointing a finger at anybody, but I've been to a burger brand in the US, and it's got its red and white tile, and it's a awesome burger. I love it. It's one of my favorites. And it's got the milkshakes and the fries and all that. And then I go to Korea and it's the red and white, and you expect that. But the pictures that are hanging in the bathroom, the same pictures that are hanging in the bathroom in Atlanta as they are in Seoul, Korea. The same accolades that are hanging on the wall in the restaurant are the same accolades that are hanging on the restaurant in Atlanta, in Seoul, Korea. That doesn't work for Blaze. That doesn't work for me, right? And I love that. And if that's their model and it works, then listen, it's a pretty good model. I'm not cutting on it. That's just not what we're about. And if that's not what you're about, and you want to have some autonomy, then Blaze could be it for you. Or there's a lot of brands. We want you to be involved in the community. And if your community won the state championship in football for the last 15 years, and you want to put a sign in your store that says we sponsor X and Y high schools, then get it up there. Let's be proud of that. Let's get those boys and girls and those cheerleaders and those players in there every day with pictures, and you're like, all right, put it on the wall. Let's celebrate it, right? I love my town of Atlanta, and I love the sky. Like, well, let's get a picture of Atlanta on the wall. Like, let's show some uniqueness of why Blaze is what it is. But if you're in Evansville, Indiana, what's going on in Evansville? What's going on with the Kentucky basketball team? What's going on in Nashville? Whatever it may be, let's figure that stuff out and let's celebrate it, not kind of damper it or choke it, right? And so those would be the three things. And if you find a franchisor that's willing to, work with you, and listen, no one wants to run their brand up on an iceberg because someone brought in, stretching a point to make a point, brought in the craziest new dish that no one's ever heard of, and everybody says, oh, it's, no, we're not talking about that type of, open thinking. But hey, I'd like to, change this way, and I'd like to offer it. Okay, let's talk about that. Let's try it. Let me take that up to Ignite. Let me throw it in there and see how that works. Let me learn on my back, not on your back. And we've had folks that have come to us that want to make sandwiches, and they're unbelievable sandwiches with our dough. And they're using the ingredients that are already there. So we had a caprese sandwich, we had an Italian sandwich, we had a meatball parm sandwich. I mean, we had some really good sandwiches, and the franchisee did it on his own, and we, watched him and learned from him. And so that's in our culinary innovation pipeline right now. Awesome. Let's figure it out.
Yeah. And as a brand that's consistently been ahead of the curve with innovating and staying ahead of all of these different trends, If we were having this conversation 5 years from now, what do you think a successful restaurant brand would be doing differently than they are today?
Great question. So I think what they would be doing differently now than they are today is they would be trying to even cater to the consumer even more than we already do, right? And it's great to go down the line and get your pizza your way, and it's your artistical picture, and you get to take it to your chair and this and that. I think what is going to start to evolve is the online presence, right? And so, how do we get that to an elevated position? There's DoorDash, there's Uber Eats, and that's great. And we all have our experiences. Some are very, very positive, and some of them are very, very negative with the driver that shows up to your door with your order. Okay, well, those standards are going to change, right? And are you hurting my business because your driver is not dressed professionally? Are you hurting my business because your driver I saw him throw my pizza on my stoop as he walked away and didn't, because I didn't want to hand deliver to me. Those types of things. That's all going to get better and better and better. And the data is allowing us to know who our consumers really, really are. So now we can start to tailor certain things that says, you know what? We didn't know that millennial moms was our biggest user until a year ago. Well, yeah, well, that of course that makes sense. You look at it and you're like, okay, well then what are we doing for millennial moms? What changes? What changes in our offerings? What changes in our pricing? What changes on when promotions are being offered? Are millennial moms in the car at 4 o'clock when they picked up kids from school and they're taking them home at 3 o'clock as they're taking them to a swim practice, and then they're doing like, when are millennial moms out and about? Well, that's when we want to run our promotional offer. Oh, we scale this way in this part of the territory, in the part of the country, or whatever it may be. So I think there's going to be a lot of data. And right now, I think there still is a ton of data out there. It's now getting all that data into actionable items, right? And it's getting getting AI to do even more for you. We all use AI, and we all started out, please rewrite this sentence for me. Please rewrite this note for me, right? And then we started asking it when we got better. Then we started asking, can you please write this note for me, but please make sure that you include that the CAGR is going to be this, and the return on investment is going to be that, and the system's growing like this, and and then you get a better output. Oh, by the way, could you also include a training guide with that, because I want to make sure that this is, and then all of a sudden, you're using it more, and you're getting more intuitive, and it's processing all this for you. All that's going to start to come into everybody's day-to-day lives, and you're going to get better. And that's really a lot of the reason why we started to pilot the AI on the lead generation side. Let's get better about who we're talking to and what we're talking to them about. So it's not just sales has always been kind of, we call salesmen are hunters, right? And you talk to your hunter, and your hunter says, hey, I need a better gun. So you go buy the hunter a better gun. I need a scope for that gun. So you buy them a scope for that gun. And then your hunter says, yeah, I need a deer stand. I need to get up there. Okay, we'll get you the deer stand. I'm gonna need some camouflage. And it's like, I need to be a better hunter, right? And at certain points, you got to say, well, I've given you all this stuff. You haven't even taken a shot yet. Like, what's going on, right? And is it the salesperson's problem, or are we not aligned on how we want to be getting to the people that want to be gotten to? Right. And so this AI and this data is pushing us all to be better hunters, less fishing, less just kind of throwing things out there and hoping us fish swims by. We're getting better at figuring out where are the fish and where are the fish that like our brand. And so that's what we're getting better with. I think that's going to be the biggest change just across all industries, not just food and beverage, but I think all industries. You're going to start to see it.
Kevin, this has been a great conversation, from franchise growth to innovation and the future of restaurant development. Before we wrap up, is there anything exciting coming up at Blaze Pizza that you'd like to share with our audience?
Sure. So yes, we are going to be at the Multi-Unit Franchising Conference and the Pizza Expo in Vegas next week. And that is the March 22nd through the 25th, I think it is, something like that, but next week. And please come by and see us at our booth at the conference. We'd be more than happy to chit chat with you. And as always, listen, if you don't know something and you want to talk to someone that you think does know it, stop by. I'll tell you. Listen, I want you to buy my brand. I want you to be a part of the system if that's something you want. But if you're just kicking tires and trying to figure out what you want to do and what you want to get into, I'll be happy to explain to you. My whole team will be happy to explain to you what we know and the things to start to look for when you're talking to other people about other brands. Just so you're not blindsided. And you know, some guys are tricky out there, and that's okay. You know, that's just part of doing business in this world. But if I can take some of that angst or some of that ambiguity out of whatever you're thinking, come by, come talk. And you know, as you can tell, I'd like to talk. So, you know, happy to share what I know.
That's great. Thank you, Kevin.
All right. Thanks, Abigail, for everything.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.